Socotra Island's dragon blood trees sculpt alien silhouettes across Yemen's landscape because they evolved in isolation and exist nowhere else on Earth. Do you know that Lake Kayindi in Kazakhstan hides a submerged spruce forest, trunks frozen in crystalline silence after a 1911 earthquake dammed a canyon and still pull through glassy water? Raja Ampat's reefs in Indonesia harbor about 3/4 of the planet's coral species, a marine ark whose diversity scientists still struggle to fully catalog. Mount Fuji rises to 3,776 meters with a nearly perfect symmetrical cone that can be seen from over 100 kilometers away, an optical rarity among the world's volcanoes. Do you know Mount Fuji's last great eruption in 1707 scattered ash so far that Edo's rooftops were buried and artists began portraying the mountain with a mysterious new white band in ukiyo-e prints? Climbers still chase that historic horizon, lining up in summer's brief climbing season to reach the summit for Goraiko, the first sunrise, a ritual passed down for centuries. Below the snow line, ancient shrines like Fujisan Hongu Sengen Taisha and tiny stone markers stitch a spiritual path from the 5 lakes around its base to villages on the Fuji River. UNESCO recognized Mount Fuji in 2013 not for geological novelty alone, but for the mountain's immense cultural imprint. Poets, painters, and pilgrims who shaped Japan's identity through their encounters with the peak. From the glittering mirror of Lake Kawaguchi to the hot spring town of Hakone, each viewpoint reframes the cone, turning a single mountain into countless stories. Hidden microclimates on Fuji's slopes shelter rare alpine plants that cling to volcanic ash, species found only in Japan's high volcanic zones. And beneath that calm silhouette, lava layers and older craters record cycles of violence, including the Hawaii eruption that left a new peak of ash and reshaped nearby valleys. Local artisans still harvest volcanic stone and use it in shrines and lanterns, binding geology to daily life in ways tourists rarely notice. If you cross from the Fuji 5 Lakes to the historical trail of Yoshida, you move from postcard panoramas into the footsteps of Edo-era pilgrims whose graffiti still marks some mountain huts. Scientists climb too, measuring gases and snowpack, because Mount Fuji's behavior still matters to millions living downwind, in cities stretching to Tokyo. The same slopes that host shrines and high-altitude flowers are also a living laboratory where ancient eruption cycles teach modern urban planners about risk and resilience. Walk the cedar-lined approaches and you feel time accordion. Shrines hardened by centuries, tour buses humming at the base, and at the very rim, silence as old as the rock. From Fuji's western flanks, you can see the dance of seasons. Cherry blossoms below in spring, a perfect cone powdered in winter, and a green mosaic in summer that feeds village festivals. Come for the postcard view, Stay to understand how one mountain stitched legend, livelihoods, and science together, naming not just a peak, but a rhythm that pulses through Japan. Mount Fuji is not merely a backdrop. It is a living, breathing presence that has shaped weather, art, religion, and the very way people measure distance and time in its shadow. A third of Socotra Island, Yemen, is home to plant species found nowhere else on Earth. Do you know Socotra Island's dragon blood trees, with umbrella-shaped crowns, exude crimson resin that ancient traders prized as medicine and dye? The island's skyline is punctuated by these sculptural trees and by limestone karsts that catch light like fossilized waves. Beneath them, white sand beaches guard coral gardens, whose fish and coral assemblages trace migration routes between the Red Sea and the Indian Ocean. Field biologists keep discovering species here, decades after the first surveys, turning Socotra into a living laboratory of evolution. Endemic birds like the Socotra chiffchaff and unique reptiles seem to speak of isolation and of nature's patient creativity. Those currents also carried ancient sailors and traders whose shipwrecks now lie beneath reefs, preserving objects and stories in saltwater silence. Today, conservationists race to balance protection with local livelihoods as climate shifts and geopolitics place new pressures on this fragile island. Every protective fence and community-led reserve is a bid to keep Socotra's eccentric forests and reefs intact for future generations. As you begin to imagine the dragon blood trees silhouetted against a violet dusk, remember that Socotra remains one of the planet's last ecological frontiers. Stay with us, and we'll trace how this island links its wild wonders to the broader tapestry of Yemen and the Arabian Sea, revealing secrets few have seen. We will visit cliffside villages where frankincense trees still stand and map the threads that tie Socotra's ecology to long-distance trade routes. By the end of this segment, you'll understand why scientists call Socotra the Galapagos of the Indian Ocean and why losing it would be losing a chapter of Earth's biography. Cappadocia's honeycombed landscape of volcanic tuff spires and subterranean cities is one of the planet's few regions shaped almost entirely by soft rock erosion. Do you know that the Derinkuyu underground city in Cappadocia could shelter tens of thousands and once contained entire communities, livestock pens, and ventilation shafts carved centuries ago? Above ground, Göreme opens like a storybook of cave churches whose frescoes preserve Byzantine secrets in pigment and platys plaster. From Göreme, the terrain flows into Love Valley and then to Pasabog, where mushroom-shaped chimneys rise like natural sculptures, linking one micro-world to the next. Hot air balloons drifting at sunrise turn the region into a living map, revealing how rivers of ash and lava laid the bedrock for villages to hollow into the hills. Many of those hollowed spaces became homes, monasteries, and later boutique cave hotels, so that sleeping in a cliffside room connects travelers directly to millennia of human adaptation. Uchisar Castle anchors the skyline and serves as a lookout that threads sightlines from the valleys to the ancient trade routes beyond. As you walk from Uchisar toward Avanos, you follow the Kızılırmak River, Turkey's longest, whose clay fed a pottery tradition that still shapes the town's identity. In Zelva's eroded canyons, entire villages were abandoned, but their labyrinthine streets still whisper about seasonal migrations and shifting civilizations. Stay with us, and you will learn why this improbable landscape continues to reshape how we think about home, history, and the raw artistry of Earth itself. We'll visit lesser-known sites where underground wineries and hidden stairways reveal unexpected human ingenuity carved into the tuff. And you'll discover surprising rituals, from sunset prayers in cliffside chapels to seasonal festivals that animate these ancient passages with modern joy. By the end of our Cappadocia segment, you'll see how each valley threads into the next, a continuous tapestry that only makes sense when viewed both from the ground and from the sky. This is not just a landscape to photograph. It's a living archive of adaptation, artistry, and the odd, enduring logic of people who turned stone into shelter and story. More than 99% of the Maldives rise as coral islands on a submerged volcanic ridge, making the Maldives atolls one of the world's most fragile low-lying archipelagos. Do you know the Maldives atolls number 26, and that Ba Atoll earned UNESCO Biosphere status for hosting vast manta ray and whale shark gatherings in Hanifuru Bay? From North Male's bustling streets to South Ari's wide lagoons and hidden mangrove channels, each atoll contains its own reef ecosystems and secret sandbanks. Some tiny islands glow at night with bioluminescent plankton so bright, swimmers appear to leave trails of light across the lagoon. Ba Atoll's seasonal plankton blooms are ecological barometers that scientists track to understand ocean health across the Indian Ocean. Nearby South Ari's feeding corridors draw whale sharks that return annually, creating an ancient rhythm between fish, tourists, and fishermen. Adu Atoll breaks the usual pattern by linking islands with causeways, forming a rare continuous chain and a distinct local culture. On Gone, Wabiwatu relics, British-era structures and freshwater ponds reveal a layer of history few tourists expect. Conservation projects on islands like Thulustu pair coral nurseries with community tourism to protect reefs while supporting livelihoods. Fishermen still cast hand lines under Vadhu's luminous shores, where folklore and the sea's nightly light merge. The real story of the atolls is connection. Currents, migrating turtles, and human networks tie each ring to the next. Rising seas and coral bleaching threaten that web. But local innovations from mangrove restoration to reef-safe practices offer hopeful paths. Visitors often come for beaches, but leave understanding that these rings of sand are living systems needing care and global attention. To grasp the Maldives' atolls is to follow currents, species, and stories across water that binds island to island and fate to fate. The Himalayan storm-sculpted ridges around Nepal cradle glaciers and high passes found nowhere else on Earth. Do you know that Mount Everest Base Camp, perched above the Khumbu Glacier, sits at an elevation where visibility and temperature can change in minutes? Trekking to base camp begins in the small airstrip town of Lukla and threads through rhododendron forests, trading posts, and stone monasteries. Each village along the trail, from Fakting to Namche Bazaar, passes on stories of climbers, avalanches, and the unforgiving mountain itself. Khumbu Glacier, a river of compressed ice, creeks and caves with a sound that marks the landscape like geological punctuation. At the base camp, tents cluster on moraine, where climbers and Sherpa crews coax oxygen and resolve out of thin air. Sherpa culture is braided through the journey, with prayer flags and mani stones guiding trekkers and blessings protecting expeditions. Descending from Everest links you back to lower valleys where crops, commerce, and life depend on the mountain's seasonal generosity. Local guides point out vanished glaciers and rerouted trails, evidence that even the Himalaya keeps its secrets and its warnings. Conversely, small conservation projects around the trail are planting trees, managing waste, and training locals as stewards of their own peaks. At festivals in Khumbu, costumes and chant celebrate the mountain deity, reminding climbers that Everest is also a living presence in local belief. These cultural rites weave directly into climbing rituals, where offerings are made before a rope team departs for Camp 2 or 3. Mount Everest Base Camp thus becomes a classroom, a shrine, and an arena where training, science, and spirituality converge in thin air. What you carry home is more than photographs. It's a changed sense of scale, responsibility, and the intricate links between village and summit. Raja Ampat Islands in Indonesia shelter more than 75% of the planet's known coral species, a concentration found in almost no other place on Earth. Do you know Raja Ampat's submerged pinnacles and mangrove labyrinths create microhabitats that nurture fish species discovered only in these waters? Above water, limestone karst islets rise like scattered chess pieces, each crowned with emerald forest. Beneath, a riot of color unfolds where pygmy seahorses and walking sharks slip through fields of soft coral. The archipelago's 4 main islands, Waigeo, Misul, Salawati, and Batanta, are gateways to hidden lagoons and secret passages. Local Papuan communities have navigated these channels for centuries, preserving fishing traditions that mirror the reef's complexity. In some seasons, manta rays assemble at cleaning stations here in numbers that defy expectation, turning clear waters into moving tapestries. Researchers still find new species every few years, cataloging nudibranchs and reef fish that rewrite field guides. Each island holds its own mystery: caves with ancient middens, tidal pools alive with transient species, reefs that glow at night. Expect to meet guides who read the sea like a book, pointing to currents that deliver plankton feasts to patient filter feeders. You'll hear how conservationists and local leaders negotiated no-take zones that revived once empty fishing grounds. In the coming chapters, we uncover how a single dive can reveal networks that extend far beyond these turquoise borders. And we will question what global choices mean for this fragile reef kingdom and the people who call it home. Stay with us as we peel back layers of coral, culture, and commerce to reveal the hidden rules that sustain Raja Ampat. By the end, you may not see this place the same way again. Clinging to cliffs that shoulder jagged glaciers, the Karakoram Highway is the world's highest paved international road and one of the rare arteries that let you drive beside K2 and its neighboring giants. Do you know the Karakoram Highway was carved through rock and ice in the 1960s and 70s by Pakistani and Chinese engineers, and that sections still slide, collapse, and reform every year as the mountains move? From the terraced apricot orchards of Hunza to the turquoise spill of Atabad Lake, the highway stitches together landscapes that seem painted by extremes. Along the way, ancient petroglyphs and crumbling forts like Baltit whisper of Silk Road traders who once crossed these passes centuries before the tarmac arrived. At Atabad, a 2010 landslide dammed the Hunza River and created a sudden inland sea that swallowed part of the highway, forcing ferries to carry vehicles through a lake younger than many drivers. Today, concrete viaducts and hairpin climbs reconnect the road. But the memory of that shifting water is a constant reminder that this is a living landscape, not a static backdrop. Follow it, and you move not only across geography, but across time. From Bronze Age rock art to modern container trucks hauling fresh iprakees to distant markets. From the Karakoram's steel and stone, the road bends toward the glaciers that feed the Indus, and those rivers will carry the story of these high valleys all the way to the plains. In that flow is the link to other places on this journey, where the water and people born high in the mountains have shaped the cultures and cities downstream. When the sun slides down behind a serrated skyline, the highway glows like a vein of human persistence stitching impossible slopes. And as the route bends toward the next valley, you realize the Karakoram Highway is less an endpoint than the spine of a living landscape that refuses to be contained. Beneath the glassy surface of Lake Kayindi in Kazakhstan stands a submerged spruce forest, preserved like a time-frozen cathedral. Do you know that this eerie underwater grove was born when a colossal 1911 earthquake slammed the Tian Shan slopes, creating a natural landslide dam that swallowed an entire valley? The trunks pierce the water like wooden sentinels, their pale tops bobbing in the turquoise mirror, while their roots vanish into cold, clear depths. Mineral-rich runoff from the surrounding limestone and the lake's near-freezing temperatures have arrested decay, turning bark and branches into ghostly columns that seem frozen mid-growth. On still days, sunlight slices through the surface and paints bands of blue and green across the submerged bowl, making the forest appear both alive and fossilized at once. Local guides will tell you how the water preserves the wood so well that rings and knots are visible to careful divers and kayakers, offering a cross-section of Tianpuf. Kayindi's narrow basin links by mountain trails to the Kolsai lakes, so a hike between these jewel-like waters feels like stepping through different chapters of the same alpine story. As you move from one lake to the next, the landscape shifts from pine-scented valleys to craggy ridgelines, and each body of water reflects its own slice of the Tian Shan sky. The lake's uncanny stillness has inspired myths among local Kazakh communities about sunken groves and mountain spirits guarding hidden paths. But the science is no less poetic. Under that surface lie clues about seismic history, and how a single natural disaster can create an otherworldly landscape. Photographers chase reflections, and scuba divers explore timber trunks that loom like cathedral pillars, while gliders of light reveal the depth and the silence beneath. Every season changes the story. Summer draws emerald clarity, and winter inks the scene in monochrome, as ice seals the forest beneath a glassy coffin. Halong Bay is home to nearly 1,600 towering limestone karsts and islets, many crowned with miniature rainforests, a formation found in only a few places on Earth. Do you know Halong Bay's cliffs hold caves where prehistoric fossils and rare orchids have been discovered, rewriting the area's natural history? Mornings here rise through mist, revealing emerald water, threaded with narrow channels and hidden lagoons that feel like secret rooms carved by time. Local fishermen navigate these channels between floating villages, and their daily routes lead seamlessly toward Cat Ba Island and the quieter bays of Bai Tu Long. Between islands, limestone towers plunge straight into the sea, their sheer faces scored with caves, arches, and freshwater springs that sustain small ecosystems. Biologists still find new species in the pools and caverns, and every kayak trip can turn into a small expedition of a discovery. The legend says dragons descended from the mountains and spat jewels that became the islands, and that myth still shapes how locals name hidden grottos and beaches. Today you can trace that story from Sungsot Cave's cathedral rooms to the secret paddles of Luan Cave's narrow tunnels, each point flowing into the next. UNESCO recognized Halong Bay for its outstanding geological values, yet many of its best sites lie in Bai Tu Long and the bays surrounding Cat Ba, just beyond the common routes. Explorers who push past the tourist choke points find deserted beaches, rare bird colonies, and fishing hamlets that feel centuries old. The sea level changes that sculpted the karsts began hundreds of millions of years ago during tectonic upheavals, leaving layers that researchers can still read like pages. Those layers tell a story that connects Halong Bay to the broader Gulf of Tonkin, where currents and seasons have shaped human life and migration patterns. At sunset, the islets silhouette into a forest of black needles, and the water turns the color of old jade, a sight that has drawn painters and poets for generations. Yet beyond the postcards, conservationists are racing to balance tourism, fishing traditions, and habitat protection along routes that link island to island. A night aboard a traditional junk reveals phosphorescent tides, whispering winds, and the soft geometry of limestone under moonlight, tying one anchored cove to the next. Every anchored night becomes a living map, connecting places like Titov Beach, the floating markets, and the unkeyed edges where sea meets rock. For those willing to wake before dawn, the reward is silence interrupted only by bird calls and the drip of water from cavern roofs as sunlight finds the bay. Follow that morning path, and you'll soon slip from Halong's busy heart into Bai Tu Long's calm, where each island is a chapter waiting to be read. Halong Bay is a landscape of slow forces, rain, tide, and time, sculpting beauty that is both fragile and resilient. To travel here is to move through geology and legend at once, watching one place lead you quietly to the next. Pamukkale's chalk-white travertine terraces are formed by calcium-rich thermal waters, creating sculpted pools rarely seen anywhere else. Do you know Pamukkale's terraces still grow slowly, laying down layers of calcite that can fossilize footprints and ruins beneath? The water pours from springs at the hilltop, cooling and depositing minerals as it spills into rimstone pools. These terraces shimmer in sunlight, their milky blue pools contrasting with stark white ridges like frozen waterfalls. Above them sits Hierapolis, a Greco-Roman spa city whose columns and baths were built to worship and harness the healing springs. Visitors wade gently in the warm waters while imagining Romans who once healed here, connecting nature's chemistry to human ritual. Beneath the travertine, the heat source whispers of deep geology, where tectonic faulting lets groundwater meet geothermal warmth. That invisible energy feeds not only pools, but a landscape of hot springs stretching across western Turkey's volcanic past. Pamukkale's white terraces are fragile, protected by strict footpath rules and restoration efforts that sometimes ban bathing to let calci sahu reform. Conservation balances tourism and natural growth, a living science experiment visible in each new rim and crystalline sheet. At sunset, terraces glow saffron and rose, reflecting skies while steam rises from hidden vents. Photographers plan pilgrimages for this hour, when light sculpts every pool into a luminous jewel. Local guides tell of Ottoman-era uses, pilgrimages, and the trade routes that threaded through Denizli's plains. They passed down small rituals, which pools were favored, which springs were believed to cure rheumatism or skin ailments. Today, scientists sample the springs, tracking mineral flux and microbial life that thrives in warmth and high calcium. Microbial mats contribute to the terrace colors and offer clues to extremophile survival and ancient life signatures. Pamukkale remains both museum and laboratory, a place where tourists, historians, and scientists meet at water's edge. Long after you leave, those terraces will keep growing, patient calcareous handwriting on the Earth's white page. The Dubai Desert Dunes are one of the world's rare coastal sand seas, where iron-rich red quartz sands ripple against fossilized shell beds, creating bands of color that shift with each gust. Do you know the Dubai Desert Dunes conceal salt-encrusted Socotra flats and fossilized freshwater pools left from a vanished shoreline? Wind-scoured ridges rise into towering crescents by day and become cold, glittering under the stars at night. Tiny ecosystems surprise the eye, from burrowing sand vipers and red foxes to resilient plants that photosynthesize beneath a thin film of sand. People have navigated these moving seas for millennia, with Bedouin lore recording routes that still guide modern camel treks and conservation patrols. You can trace old caravan tracks in satellite images, threads that connect the dunes to oases and the distant Hajar Mountains. When dawn pours gold across the ridges, flocks of migratory birds use the depressions as hidden stopovers, refueling on insect blooms after rare rains. This fragile burst of life transforms the dunes from barren sands into a brief, riotous greenhouse of seasonal color. Human hands have left marks too, from ancient falage irrigation remains to contemporary conservation projects that protect endemic species. Local initiatives fence off breeding grounds and reintroduce native plants, hoping to stitch stability back into a landscape that refuses to stand still. At sunset, the palette shifts, burnt orange, violet, and sienna, and the skyline of Dubai rises like a mirage beyond the last ridge. That dramatic contrast between glittering skyscrapers and the raw, shifting dunes is a testament to the region's geological extremes. Nightfall reveals constellations and the soft silhouettes of nocturnal life that emerge to hunt and forage. Guides teach visitors to read the sand like a book, finding water-carrying routes and ancient pathways hidden in plain sight. From these dunes, one can continue the journey into the Emirates' conservation reserves or veer toward the mangrove-lined coast, each landscape a flip side of the same geological story. The Dubai Desert Dunes are not just a backdrop for adventure. They are a living archive, recording climate swings and human footprints in every grain. To stand on a crest and feel the wind sculpting the earth is to hold a chapter of planetary history in your hands. And as these sands keep moving, they quietly rewrite the map, linking past deserts to present cities and hinting at the next place we will explore. Soon we will follow that map toward the inland oases and calt flats that finish the dunes story. What we discover there will change how you see this endless sweep of sand. The Irrawaddy River cuts a green scar through Myanmar, sheltering one of the world's last Irrawaddy dolphin populations. Do you know the Irrawaddy River sometimes mirrors the light that sets Bagan's thousands of pagoda roofs ablaze at dawn? In the plain below, more than 2,000 temples and stupas rise like a fossilized city of prayer. Each brick and stucco dome contains centuries of devotion, hidden frescoes and reclining Buddhas that rarely leave guidebooks. From the terrace of a single temple, you can watch farmers steer plow and ox along the river as they did 1,000 years ago. At sunrise, hot air balloons float above the serried spires, turning the landscape into an ancient map of shadow and gold. Some temples still hide secret chambers where lacquerware painters worked under candlelight, and the scent of tamarind wood lingers. Local artisans trace techniques that tie Bagan's crafts to the forests and rivers beyond, linking temple art to daily life. Travel from Bagan by boat, and the Irrawaddy unrolls villages that make the journey feel like a passage through time. The route naturally threads toward Mount Popa, a volcanic outcrop crowned with monastery shrines and a living cult of spirits. Mount Popa's fig trees and sacred grottos contrast Bagan's brick geometry, revealing how landscape shapes belief across Myanmar. From there, the cultural line continues north to Mandalay's royal courts and south to the floating gardens of Inle Lake. In every transition, Bagan remains a hinge, the place where river, temple, and mountain tell the same story in different accents. By following those lines, you will discover not only monuments, but the songs, recipes, and rituals that keep them alive. This film will trace those threads, peeling back lacquer and brick to reveal the living histories beneath Bagan's sunburnt domes. Prepare to meet monks, boatmen, and potters whose small gestures preserve a landscape far older than any visitor's map. Our journey threaded from the ancient clarity of Lake Baikal, the planet's oldest and deepest freshwater reservoir, to the tangle of roots and salt in the Sundarbans, where man and tiger still negotiate survival. We crossed deserts that swallow horizons in the Gobi, and descended into caves so vast they hold villages within their dark. We watched Komodo's prehistoric rulers patrol volcanic shores and traced the slow, patient engineering of rice terraces that step like breath down the hillsides of Southeast Asia. We stared at Mount Fuji's perfect cone and then drifted over islands where the ocean itself has learned to glow under moonlit feet. From the thermal white pools that seem painted by forgotten gods to the neon blue expanse of bioluminescent bays, every stop revealed a new rule of nature rewritten. Oldest forests, youngest coral reefs, islands born from fire. Asia keeps folding its stories into one another, each place a hinge to the next. And as we moved from one wonder to the next, we saw patterns. Survival braided with innovation, silence threaded with unexpected life, and the human hand both mending and unmaking. The languages, rituals, and cuisines we encountered were more than culture. They were living maps pointing to how people adapt to these singular ecosystems. If you take one thing from this voyage, let it be this: Asia's extremes are not isolated spectacles, but chapters in a single, restless book of survival. Protecting one place often means protecting a river, a reef, or a migratory corridor that binds distant communities and species together. There are still hidden wonders waiting. Caves that hold undiscovered species, islands with climate stories yet unread, and human traditions that carry ecological wisdom in their smallest gestures. Stay curious, leave a lighter footprint, and travel not just to see but to learn. Because the next secret of Asia may be the one that changes how we think about our own place on this planet.